Interestingly enough, also, Nigel Mansell stood up and said, hey, I messed up. If you want to give me a one-lap penalty and take away my points, I'll take that penalty as well. A lot of interesting things in the drivers' meeting.
A lot of conversations going on there. By the way, Hiro Mashuta, he did not qualify for this race. That's not to say that he was not here and trying. They were using a year-old car. He was very definitely here and doing his best to qualify, so he suffered no injury despite that spectacular race.
Well, he did suffer some strains and bangs, though, because in between the times that he was driving the car, he had a trainer with him pulling on his arms and trying to get him in shape.
Coming up next month on ABC, it's back to the Brickyard. First on Saturday, May 14th, Auto Racing's best try to beat the clock and grab the pole as we begin coverage of the Indianapolis 500 time trials. And then 2 weeks later on May 29th, it's the sport's most spectacular event, the Indianapolis 500 Live. All next month here on ABC Sports. The field lines up, looking for a green flag as they come off of Seaside and through the final 3 corners heading to the main straightaway. Been under full course yellow the past several laps now, 5 in fact. We've completed the 51st lap of the race.
Well, a lot of people thought, could we?
George Harrison, Tom Petty, both race fans.
Harrison, a good friend of Emerson Fittipaldi's, must like very much what he sees.
Green flag comes out again. Emerson Fittipaldi leads the field down. Immediately, Allenser Jr. comes in pursuit. Nigel Mansell third, Robbie Gordon fourth. Michael and Mario, they battle and battle for position. The position is 6th.
And as we look at when they cross the start-finish line on the restart here, Paul, 4 seconds behind for Little Al compared to Emo.
Mario has been ahead of Michael throughout the race, so the fact that Michael did not get by there just then does not mean that he's going to be held up. What is important is that Michael is now ahead of Kugelman there. Both those cars, Renards, run out of the same team, the Chip Ganassi team, but with different engineers.
So you ride with Michael Andretti, the Reynard car, chasing the Lola of his father just ahead. They'll have breakfast in the morning together, and that pretty well ends the conversations for the day.
It's amazing sometimes, like with Michael and his father, Mario, who's right in front of him there, how close they run together and how often we worry about them touching each other. But ironically, they work like a team that way. In other words, they very seldom have a problem together.
Well, of course, when they both ran for Newman Haas, they were able to share technical information, which I think both of them enjoyed tremendously. Now, mum's the word, of course, technically.
Black flag given to Scott Goodyear for exceeding the speed limit into the pits. He came in and out for a stop-and-go penalty.
You know what? That happened last year.
He was running in 20th.
Yeah, he was running second at the middle of the race last year when he was black flag for speeding in the pits.
Let's go to the pits, Gary Gerald. Gary? I thought Gary had something for us.
You know, I just wanted to mention that it seems sometimes like black flags and penalties are determining the race too much, or making the race. When we have racing, that's far better than we've had for many years. I hate to see black flag be the whole deciding point.
Let's try Gary Gerald again.
Well, Paul, it's been a really tough day for Scott Goodyear and the Budweiser team. Just before that penalty, he had gotten restarted. He had to spend time in the pits because a Heim joint on the shifting mechanism had broken. And so they had to replace that, got him back out. In his anxiety, he broke the law, had to come in on that stop and go.
Keeping an eye now on the 31 car of Allenser Jr. That's Stefan Johansson just behind him, but he has 1 lap off of the race. Currently running in 9th place. You just saw the full running order.
Stefan Johansson, normally very fast on road circuits, been very fast in practice, but he had an accident yesterday. I don't think they have their car quite up to speed since then, Paul.
In fact, that car was fairly heavily damaged. The team was working quite late last night. I was surprised with the damage he sustained in practice yesterday that they were going to get that car back together at all. They did a beautiful job.
Well, we were both talking and wondering how they were going to find a car for him because we didn't think the car could be repaired overnight. So it shows you sometime how good the mechanics really are.
Bettenhausen team was borrowing parts from everywhere to get that thing going. Allenser Jr. picks his way through traffic.
The car in question is the blue and red car that's just off the screen to the right. You'll see it come through in a second. Johansson right there. Former Grand Prix driver, several times on the podium in Grand Prix, finishing in the first 3, but never managed to win, and he's never managed to win here either.
Well, Emerson Fittipaldi has now completed 55 laps, 14 laps since his last stop as the leader of the race. 6.5 seconds back is Al Unser Jr. 2 seconds behind Little Al is Nigel Mansell, first, second, and third. We'll be back after this message and a word from our ABC station.
Brought to you by AC Delco Automotive Parts. AC Delco, it's like buying time. Your local Yamaha dealer, who invite you to see their exciting line of motorcycles, ATVs, and snowmobiles. Cold filtered Miller Genuine Draft. Get out of the old, get into the cold. And the Valvoline Performance Team.
We're back at round number 3, the PPG IndyCar World Series, the Toyota Grand Prix of Long Beach. Emerson Fittipaldi is the leader of the race. 59 laps of the 105-lap scheduled distance are complete. The early leader was Paul Tracy, but then coming through traffic, lapping cars, he got into trouble and off the course. That took him out of the lead. Then Al Unser Jr. picked up the lead of the race. And Little Al and the Penske team did a fascinating maneuver. They pulled a time stop for their first pit stop, hoping to try to pick up some time and set themselves up for the end of the race. Al Unser Jr. runs in second place now. Nigel Mansell third, Robbie Gordon fourth, Raul Boesel fifth.
And they've really been having some hard battles. Little Al's had a lot of cars to pass because he did get that penalty back in the field. He's been complaining over the radio that he'd like to see more move-over flags. And I don't blame him a bit for wanting that. But the other guys would like that too, Paul.
Any help you can take. We're watching Mauricio Gugelmin and Stefan Johansson as they were battling for a little bit there. Now the leader's coming around to overhaul Gugelmin, who's having a pretty good day. And as he gets it sideways.
Now that's more than one time there for Tracy right in this race. Paul is really having a problem, and I'd have to think that the problem he's actually having is he has too much rear brake. As soon as he touches the brakes hard, locks the rear tires, and around it goes.
I was going to say the same place, same problem. That's got to be a brake light.
These cars have adjustments inside of them. They can adjust the brakes. You can watch him now. He's coming underneath Gugelmin there. Starts pushing on the brakes. Watch the fronts don't locking up. You see the rears light up. Now, that's Paul's fault. He's probably adjusted the brake bias the wrong way, causing the problem from the cockpit.
And the point is, Bobby, if your fronts lock up, the car remains fairly stable. When the rears lock up, you swap ends.
Well, of course, the idea, Sam, is to have all four of them if they're going to lock at the same time, which is almost impossible.
Yeah, you got a good idea, too, there from that one shot on the replay of all the brake that is being done going in that corner, all those black marks. What do they do in the cockpit, Bobby, to keep him from twisting the brake control the wrong direction?
Well, it's called education. Just tell the guy to the right does one thing, to the left does the other. And what happens is the drivers are smart enough to know that. The problem is they get excited in the race. They forget which way they needed to turn the bias. They turn it the wrong way. Then he finds out when he's at the end of a 190-mile-an-hour straightaway.
Well, Tracy trying to come back up to speed now. He is well out of the top 20.
But just
and 6 laps, now 7 laps behind the lead.
It's just virtually a bad day for Paul. It looks like it just gets worse as it goes on. I bet he's really wondering by now.
Smooth run for Emerson Fittipaldi now. He runs in the lead of the race. Jack Arute, you have an update. Emerson slows. All of a sudden, Emerson slows. Jack Arute's been watching from pit side. Emerson raises his hand indicating that he is slowing, and this looks like a serious problem. Here is Little Al
taking the lead.
Al comes past, picks up the lead of the race. Let's go pit side. Jack Arute, do you have any idea what's going on?
Well, Paul, we're getting conflicting reports. You know, one of the things that happened with Team Penske this year is they have scrambled their radios, so you can't eavesdrop. The team is a little concerned. At first they thought it might be a gearbox problem, but now the secondary thought is it may be an electrical problem. He's limping his way back to the pits where the crew will take a look at it, and we'll give you a report then.
In the hairpin now, he'll be around that corner in a second.
Another thing to remember now, Penske cars are all identical. So Roger Penske is going to be worrying, whatever happened to Emil, is it going to happen to Little Al too? Because it's obviously going to be his only chance of winning this race with Little Al. So he'll be the first one to want to know what is wrong with Emil's car when it comes in right now.
All right, Emerson heads for the pits. Jack is waiting.
Well, Bobby Unser, you were alluding to the fact that they felt the engine sounds fine here. They're going to change tires. It may have been that he had a problem finding a gear because it looks as if they're not going to take any cowlings off. And one of the things that we were told, because of the type of gear ratios you have to run here, sometimes you can clip off a little piece of the gear. He stalled the engine now when you're shifting. And Emo is not at all happy. But, Bobby, as you know, with the different gears between first, second, third, and fourth, you can clip them off, and it can become difficult shifting.
Jack, the most likely problem is that Emma ran out of fuel. Remember, he had a time to stop. Most likely he's out of fuel, and the reason it dies right now is it hasn't purged the air out of the system. It's fuel injection, but it still has to get the air out.
But Bobby, he came in, took his normal stop. He stalled after the stop. He had taken on the fuel. It sounds like he's still stuck in that fifth gear.
Major development as far as the championship standings are concerned. Emerson came in here with a substantial lead, 37 points to 22 for his nearest pursuer, and if he had won this race or even finished second, he would have gone into Indy with a hammerlock on the series. This opens things right up.
Pretty slow rollout, which helps support that gear argument, Bobby.
Well, let's just watch and see if he gets back up to speed. If he did, then obviously he did run out of fuel. If not, remember, these are sequential gear transmission. Or in other words, to the people who ride motorcycles, they're just like a motorcycle. And all the cars today are that way of the new models. Now, that means that you put it in first, go to second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, and so on.
All right, Jack Now's had a chance to talk with the Penske team.
I talked with Chuck Sprague, and here's exactly what it gave us. They were surmising the same way we did. At first, they were referring to it as a temporary gear shifting problem. The car was hung up in gear. Chuck Sprague, though, much like you did, Bobby Unser, thought maybe it wasn't that and maybe they had run out of fuel. They've ascertained that they had not run out of fuel, but they are very, very concerned about the gearbox.
Jack, it looks like they're in trouble again. We see the car moving very slowly around the back part of the track. Whatever struck has struck again.
Well, it seems to get hung up in a gear, and during practice, that last practice session this morning, that was a problem that befell Al Unser Jr.
Jack, they're
concerned about it.
They had this problem with two of the three cars back on Friday. They felt they had it beat. And,
but he's going to stay out. I don't understand that.
Well,
maybe he's hoping it's going to get back up into a gear and he can go.
Well, he's still trying to figure out, can he overcome the problem by shifting it a little bit different or something like that. All they do with a gear shift is go forward and back with it from one to the other. Again, sequential on the shift. So in order to get the second, he has to go from sixth to second and so on. And naturally, when you're shifting up, you go from one to the other like that. But going down, you have to shift a bunch of times.
Emerson Fittipaldi being very careful. As you see, the new leader of the race, Al Unser Jr., comes around, completing his 66th lap now with Nigel Mansell running in second. And in third, it's Robbie Gordon. Back at the Toyota Grand Prix of Long Beach, Nigel Mansell with a problem. The right rear tire shredding off of the wheel. He's going to limp back to the pits.
Obviously, it was a cut tire. Not a blown tire, but a cut tire. He's got to run it flat. You can look at it. It looks like it's still on the car, but the wheel is a whole lot wider what that tire is.
He had the misfortune to have it happen early in the lap, so he's had to make his way around the entire track at low speed.
Looking down on Long Beach. Yesterday here, they held the annual Toyota Pro Celebrity Race. Sam Posey takes a closer look at the fun-filled event.
You got the same pin.
Pro football players, actors, and a sports writer were among the 13 exciting celebrities wheeling identical Toyotas through the streets. Also in the race, but starting behind the celebrities, would be 4 seasoned pros, including the man who back in 1976 won the first Grand Prix here, Clay Regazzoni. Paralyzed in a subsequent accident at this track, Regazzoni has developed special controls for his car. The ring inside the steering wheel is his throttle. Shifting is with a manually operated clutch. The brake is that lever in the foreground. Despite the tragedy that befell him here, Clay is happy to be back.
Oh, I still have a good remember from Long Beach for my victory in 1976 with Ferrari. And it's nice to be back and see a nice town, old friend, new drivers, and drive again, race again.
At the start, Alfonso Ribeiro, star of Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, takes the lead. A cool dude on the screen. He's hot in the streets. Then behind him, trouble. Jet skier Christy Carlson blasts inside actor Paul Gosselaar. while Brian Redman in the maroon car takes the lead of the pros as they charge through the field. Regazzoni out with mechanical trouble. Ribeiro wins and talks of actually becoming a driver, while Brian Redman, who won the first ever race here 19 years ago, beats the other pros.